Welcome back to day 23 of our Labrynth Stanley coverage for Draft Utopia. And yesterday I decided to take a personal day off from all the playoff coverage because I have to get an NBA and an MLB mock draft up for the site. Plus, The Hangover 3 came out and I saw the premiere on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Plus I figured, the more games the merrier. I wanted to do at least one day of NHL playoff action where we'd be able to break down all 4 games from the divisional round in one night. So let's get to it. The first game featured the Pittsburgh Penguins facing the Ottawa Senators. In the first period, Milan Mikulek scores on a shorthanded goal. He puts the Ottawa Senators up 1-0. Then James Neal scores on a wrist shot. Penguins tie it up at 1. Later in the first, Kyle Turris scores. Turris scores his 5th goal of the playoffs. Ottawa leads 2-1 after 1 period. In the second period, Chris Kunitz scores on a wrist shot, giving Kunitz his 4th goal of the playoffs. Later in the second, Jarome Iginla scores his 3rd goal on a wrist shot. Penguins lead 3-2 after 2 periods. Third period power play. James Neal scores, and the Penguins go up 4-2. Pascal Dupuis with a tip-in goal, giving Pittsburgh a 5-2 lead. Sid the Kid scores 30 seconds later, giving Pittsburgh a 6-2 lead. Jarome Iginla scores his 2nd goal, this one on a power play. Daniel Alfredsson scores on a power play late in the third after the Penguins are up 7-2. Pittsburgh wins 7-3, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are 1 game away from the Eastern Conference Finals thanks to that win over the Ottawa Senators on Wednesday night. How the other 3 games of action go on Thursday night? Boston Bruins and the New York Rangers. Second period, Bruins score 2 power play goals. Rangers score and trail 2-1 after 2. Third period, Derek Stepan scores. Rangers tied at 2 later in the third. Tyler Seguin scores. He puts the Bruins up 3-2 later in the third. Brian Boyle scores and ties it up at 3. Overtime, Chris Kreider. Kreider scores, and the New York Rangers win in overtime to avoid the sweep. Chicago Blackhawks versus the Detroit Red Wings. Second period, Jakob Kindl. Kindl scores on a slap shot on the power play that puts Detroit up 1-0. That ends the Blackhawks' streak for penalty killing in the postseason. Third period, Daniel Cleary scores on an empty net goal. Detroit's defense, Jimmy Howard really coming through. The Red Wings win 2 games at home, and they take 1 on the road in Chicago for Game 2. And the Red Wings did everything right to win. They should have ended in 6 games at home. And you really have to be impressed with the way the Detroit Red Wings have handled this series. Unless they collapse and Chicago gets their heads out of their butts, it's going to be Detroit. And even if Chicago does make the comeback, do they really deserve to go? The LA Kings have managed to get shutouts. They were hot at one point, winning 6 in a row. And I feel like that Kings-Sharks winner deserves it more now that the Blackhawks have shown this Achilles heel, this sign of weakness against the Detroit Red Wings. And you look at Jimmy Howard, he gets a shutout, 28 saves. Both defenses held the offense to under 30 shots, which is something you have to credit both teams for. Second period at the Staples Center between the San Jose Sharks and the Los Angeles Kings. Anze Kopitar. Kopitar scores on a wrist shot and puts the Kings up 1-0. Third period, Voinov scores. Kings are up 2-0. Jeff Carter scores an empty net goal with 30 seconds left. Kings win 3-0. Jonathan Quick, 24 for 24. Great job by the Kings. Defense, offense, goaltending, all around. Excellent win for the Los Angeles Kings at home in Game 5. You'll go to HP Pavilion for Game 6, and then for Game 7, you'll get the Staples Center if San Jose wins at home. Pittsburgh, Boston, Detroit, LA, all 1 game away from the conference finals. What will the Penguins, Bruins, Red Wings, and Kings do in Game 6 or 5 or whatever games they're playing? Game 5 of the Senators-Penguins is Friday night at Consol Energy Center in Pittsburgh, so the Penguins have a chance to close that out and be the first team to proceed to the conference finals, and they'd have home ice in the Eastern Conference if they won. That's it for this week's edition of Draft Utopia. Well, it's Labrynth to Lord Stanley. You can check us out tomorrow. We'll talk about the semifinal game in the Memorial Cup, who's going to play who for the championship on Saturday, and then we'll discuss an overall in-depth game recap of the Ottawa Senators versus Pittsburgh Penguins. This is Chris Ransom signing off.